3 points of Atletico Madrid is a huge result. And some people will say that the 1-0 is just about the result. And there were some worrying signs in that game because we will get to that one negative headline. But Barca beat Atleti at their place with better quality and a better game plan, returning the two favorites that Diego Simeone delivered them in the last few seasons. So yeah, I am going to make that argument that Barcelona won this game not because they were playing ugly, but because they were better, they were more talented, and they had a better game plan, and they deserved the victory. So here I am trying to be positive with the 5 headlines for Barcelona's 1-0 win over Atletico Madrid. 1 is on the front foot. While this stat doesn't really shape up to too much because Ansu didn't have an amazing day, this was the first time ever that Pedri, Araujo, and Ansu Fati had started for Barcelona together. Because we will talk about 2 of those 3 players quite a bit throughout this game. Xavi and that 11, it didn't pick itself, and Xavi had a lot of work to do tactically to get this right. And why Barcelona more than anything won this match? Because Barcelona and Xavi got it right from the very beginning. The idea was to put pressure on Atletico Madrid and pin them back as far as humanly possible. They like to defend so much, then let's try to match them at their own game. They play a 5-3-2, well let's play something that looks like a 3-4-3, or what turns into this 3-5-2 type situation at times when we're defending, and let's basically mirror them and play their own game better than them because we individually have more talent. And that worked out for Barcelona because that was true. Xavi's goal, and it didn't happen all the time when Barcelona lost control, okay, we'll get to that in a second, but Xavi's goal when Barcelona were playing well, and why they even scored the goal, was that they won those 3v2 battles in the middle of the field. In possession, it was a 3-4-3, as I said, or a 3-2-2-3, honestly, with Balde's body orientation being really important. He had to be ready to attack and defend, and he didn't get caught out until the 37th minute, and that led to a poor shot from Molina. And Balde, as time went on, looked like he was a little overmatched in the game, but still, the formation and the idea on how to even protect Balde was right. Barcelona showcased the best of Xavi's idea, on the goal, but even before that, there was a beautiful run of play in the 10th minute, exactly what Barca wanted to do. Get Pedri the ball, coming in for something 1 or 2 touch into the half spaces. Strengthen that space with Balde going wide, and instead of cycling all the way back to defenders, cycle right back to that midfield of either Busquets or De Jong. Goes to De Jong, puts it over to Gavi, to Dembele, and while he did miss that one, it showed you that Barcelona could have some success moving the ball quickly horizontally, right around Atleti's 18-yard box. And that pressure continued on for the first 26 minutes of that game, where Barcelona continued to wear down Atletico Madrid and try to find those spaces in between their lines. Headline 2 is against the elements, because nothing was guaranteed in this match based on that rain. In theory, the sloppy play and the fouls and things like that should have supported Atletico Madrid. But in the same way that I had a headline the other day where I absolutely terrorized Mateo Lahoz, and he should have been, he even had the week off because he did so poorly for the last 2 weeks. But the inverse of that is I have to do a bit of praising for Jose Luis Montero because he was good. He didn't choose to make this game about himself, and I felt like the cards that were given out in this game, even though he got a bunch of calls wrong, many of which went in Barcelona's favor, to be honest with you, but I thought he was just kind of solid in this game, and I bet I'm a bit biased because Atletico Madrid fans are going to be hard done by with some of the calls that didn't go their way, but I think there were some Atleti probably won as well, and I think the elements made it really tough for everybody, including him, so I do give him a little bit more of a leash today. With or without the weather, Atleti's only way forward was on the counter, and as I had previously said, they didn't get their first of that until the 18th minute. Which tells you that Barcelona were keeping up that pressure and pinning them back regardless of the conditions. Another one of the reasons I compliment Barcelona is because so many of those Atletico Madrid moments in this game came as a repercussion of the poor weather going on. Whether it was Ter Stegen having some trouble on the crosses or corners, Barca slipping in the second half. And I don't just mean the performance, I mean physically. I particularly think of Kessie in his own box falling to the ground, giving Atletico Madrid some lifelines. And then Christensen picking up a yellow in the 82nd minute because he lost his footing and had to clean up his mess. And it's certainly incredible that Gavi was given the Man of the Match award because I keep thinking throughout the game of Gavi's shoelaces. Are they going to get stuck in, well, it's not really mud, but are they going to get stuck? And are they going to slip? Is he going to trip on him? Hopefully not. And so for Gavi to play as well as he did, regardless of his shoelaces, well, I guess this Against the Elements headline isn't much of a headline at all. 3 is Pedri makes up his mind. This game came down to 1 goal, so I think it's important to really highlight this goal. It is the brainchild of Pedri and Gavi and Dembele. A lot of credit goes to this whole team for building up to that goal. As I keep saying, creating the pressure, that back line, we'll get to them later, but that back line being as solid as they were, raising the line of confrontation. Once again, this goal comes because Barcelona were having a field day in Atletico Madrid's half in that first half. First goal was scored because Pedri changed things up. And a lot of credit to the young player for doing that. First time he does change things up in the 20th minute, instead of just recycling play around and continuing to put them under pressure by trying to use the wings, Pedri fakes a pass out to the left. Koke and Molina make the mistake. Both went to cut off that perpendicular pass back to Christensen, expecting Pedri to want to recycle, which is what he kept doing for the first 20 minutes. But then Pedri looks, Griezmann coming up on his back, and Barrios doesn't step to him to come inside. Pedri just dribbles forward. It seemed like the space in front of him was really obvious that he just dribbled into that space, but that wasn't the game plan. That wasn't the idea that Xavi was trying to go with, and that wasn't the patience that Pedri has in his game, almost to a fault. So by dribbling forward in that instance, it just opened everything up. Atletico Madrid were scrambling for the first time. He finds Gavi, who held it up well enough to move on Dembele. And Gavi maybe committed a foul. Who knows? I don't think so. Goes on to Dembele, who found his spot and put it in there. He's not always clinical, but Dembele, if you give him enough opportunities, he will show you his class. It felt like Barcelona and Pedri weren't done there, though. Pedri almost got another one a few moments later when Atleti tried to give him a goal. Running in behind, but Molina comes back to cut it out. That came from pressure from Busquets, Dembele, and Ansu Fati, who was dropping in. And while it seems like Ansu wasn't a part of Gavi and Araujo and the stars of the future, his work rate in the 54 minutes he was on the field were essential to that pressure. If the number 9 today for Barcelona was not putting Oblak under pressure, was not making sure that those center backs in Savic and in Jimenez did not have time on the ball, then Atletico Madrid would have been able to carve open Barcelona through the middle of the field. Because obviously Busquets, and we know how slow he can be, wasn't necessarily able to cover all that ground. And De Jong at times was dragged out to the wings. So there could have been moments when Griezmann would have found space in the middle of the field and would be able to get it out to the wings, where obviously Llorente and Carrasco are always a difficulty for Barcelona. We saw some of that in this game, but by and large, the work rate of Ansu and Dembele up top as well, pressing, and that rest defense that we talk about, losing the ball and being prepared to get it right back. I think that was important for Ansu to have a day like this where, again, he didn't get the goal, and it might not help his confidence, but I think he should be proud of the showing and the minutes that he put in against Atletico Madrid. While Ansu didn't have the effect he wanted to have, and Dembele was hot and cold and hot enough to get the goal, this game, I think, all came down to Pedri and Gavi and whether or not they could raise their level. And because they did, Barcelona, I think, comes away with the 1-0, other than the other man of the match, and that being Ronald Araujo. One thing I noticed about Pedri and Gavi today, and this had to have been on purpose with the number of times I saw it, when Ter Stegen would have the ball, and he was looking to get it out wide, Pedri and Gavi were directing Ter Stegen. You could see them even gesturing, saying, well, get it to my wing. When I'm out there, we're going to try to play on Dembele and get forward. On the other side, it was Balde. So Pedri would, if he had a man on his back, say, no, let's switch to the other side and try to build up through the right center back in that situation. And Gavi would do the opposite on the other side. It was either long ball out to Gavi, with Dembele pushing forward and Koundé tucked in. So if you do lose that 50-50, you have that other defender, and we'll say a center back of a back three, either as Christensen on the left or Koundé on the right, to win that second ball. So Gavi and Pedri were given the responsibility to decide whether or not Barcelona were going to try and attempt some kind of 50-50 ball to win on the wings. And I think they got it right a bunch of times. Ter Stegen misplayed a ball or two on the ground, but I thought Ter Stegen's decision-making and work with Pedri and Gavi and their choices, whether or not the defender was close enough behind them to chance that ball, was right a lot of the time and allowed Barcelona to play at a pressure. I want to remind you, too, that Atletico Madrid is required a lot higher of a standard than who their midweek opponent was in Intercity. I was really critical of Barcelona because you have to beat a team like CF Intercity, go after them, get after it, and just beat them with your dominating talent and reputation and all those things that go into being FC Barcelona. Atletico Madrid, though, requires a much higher standard, and you have to be good for a whole game. This is the kind of team, that being Atletico Madrid, that even though they're not having their best season under Diego Simeone, they're going to have 1 or 2 moments every single contest where they can get you. And Barcelona had to be up to that occasion. And today they were. In multiple headlines, I'm going to talk about Ronald Araujo. Let's do it for the first time here. I was so impressed and so happy to see him back when there was that deflected shot from Llorente. When he brings his arm into his chest, it seemed like VAR, with any slight opportunity to give a penalty, they might have. And Barcelona did not give them a single chance to give a penalty to Atletico Madrid today. Ronald Araujo, fantastic in that moment. And while there was one moment that Araujo was not good, he winds up not winning a header that was wide open for Jimenez in the 33rd minute. That was the time. That was the opportunity. Atletico should have tied this game up. The header goes wide on an open net. But again, the high standard that's required for Barcelona is because you have to understand, you almost in your game plan say there's going to be 1 or 2 times Atletico Madrid might even get one off us. But we just have to finish this game with 1 more goal than them. Whether it was 2-1, whether it was 1-0, regardless of what it was, Atletico Madrid required a high standard, and Barcelona delivered on that today. 4 is when not to lose control. This is where I'm kind of go against what I just said in my last headline, that Barcelona were dominating and better and deserved the victory and all those things. Because while Atletico Madrid does deserve a high standard, Barca did lose control of this match when they should still have had control of it. The calls that were going their way, as I already mentioned, were very helpful to keeping Barcelona in the driver's seat. It also seemed to emotionally and mentally take Atleti out of the game quite a bit in that first half. But once Barca scored that goal, that was the spark that Atletico Madrid needed. It's like that goal almost hurt Barcelona in their control of this match. Because once that happened, Atletico Madrid got a bit more vertical, they pushed farther forward, they put Ter Stegen and those center backs under more pressure, and instead of letting them and allowing them to break through the middle, they forced everything out to the wings the way I think they were supposed to by Simeone to start this game, and they just didn't do it. Whether it was Koke, whether it was Molina, they didn't have the fight and desire in the middle of the field they needed. Griezmann really raised his level when Atletico Madrid took control of this match as well. And the subs of both these teams are interesting because I felt at that point when the subs came on in the 57th minute, it kind of felt like neither team. It had been Barcelona for so much of the first half. Atletico Madrid takes control, we'll say, in the latter half of the first half into the second half. Then the subs come in, and I think, I don't want to credit Xavi with this, but once they did come in, then nobody had control of this match for the rest of the contest. With Ansu and Frankie de Jong being substituted for Ferran Torres and Frank Kessié, there wasn't much of a drop-off. I think this is a polarizing performance for de Jong, because de Jong's performance was good, but it was depending on whether Barca had control of the game or not. When Barca didn't have control, de Jong looked pretty pedestrian. It looked like he was a bit too casual with the ball, wasn't defending the way we expect him to do. But when Barcelona had possession and had the ball, he was moving it quickly, horizontally, vertically, running, chasing it down, and positioning-wise was covering for Busquets and covering in behind Pedri to allow Pedri to go farther forward. So while de Jong didn't have these special moments with him on the ball, he was following the game plan and doing what he needed to do to help all those players around him. And I think de Jong's performance is what helped Busquets to play well, it helped Gavi play well, and helped Pedri do well, and I want to compliment de Jong on that. But when Atletico Madrid took control of this game, de Jong really, really suffered. And these are the kind of games where you want de Jong to give you more. And I think that's more about the big narrative than it is about the 90 minutes we watched with de Jong just today. Atleti also, by making some of their subs, gave something up. When Alvaro Morata came on the field, as the first center forward that this game actually saw, Atleti weren't able to hold the ball up any greater. It gave them an extra threat in the box, which we'll talk about in our last headline, but it didn't do much for them in terms of getting forward on the counter. It didn't really help. Not like Morata held the ball up too much. If anything, it left more space now on the wings because there was nobody coming over and covering on the wings. So Ronaldo at that point started losing track of Dembele as the second half wore on. And for what I said about de Jong, I can say a similar thing about Frank Kessié, but I thought he was actually enough chaos that was definitely a net positive here in the second half. Barcelona did retake control of the match in the 67th minute, I thought, for a little bit of a stretch, once they were able to pin Atletico Madrid back again. And at that point, I did have to say it was one of the better appearances I thought from Kessié, even in such a limited amount of time. While Barca did lose control again less than 10 minutes later, Kessié was pretty disciplined in when he was choosing to get forward, to push up and be that extra midfielder along that five going forward, again, to pin and be the mirror image of what Atletico Madrid were doing. And even with the weather, he was clean enough and good enough on the ball and understanding the situation when he held the ball up and got fouled, that's how to get a victory on the day. There in the last 20 minutes, Gavi comes off for Rafinha, Lamar and Correa come on for Atletico Madrid, for João Felix and Koke, and at that point, Atletico Madrid were kind of throwing everything against the wall. And while we see it from Barcelona's perspective, why is Barcelona just surviving? Why aren't they pushing forward for that second goal and just putting this game away? But for Atletico Madrid, they didn't have much of an answer either. So put yourself in the shoes of the fans of the mattress makers. When you're trailing like that, 1-0, the choices that are made, if you come back, are brilliant. If they're not, then they weren't the right decision. So taking off Koke and João Felix wound up being a decision by Diego Simeone that didn't pay dividends. Because Correa, while he did have some opportunities, he just wasn't really what that game needed, and Lamar barely touched the ball at all. Which takes us to headline 5, which was Nervy Ending. Because all of those changes, the different formations, and people have different roles, even Rafinha playing on the left instead of the right in a different spot, so that means he's going to defend on the opposite foot. All those little nuances created a lot of chaos, and that chaos could have supported Atletico Madrid, but it didn't because Barcelona were up to it. Now I get to praise the defense. Christensen, is he one of the best center backs in the world? No. But is he all that Barcelona needs from their third, maybe second, third? We'll have to talk about the Koundé Christensen on a podcast, but as being one of the third option center backs for Barcelona, is he all he needs to be? Of course. He is at that level, certainly. He has barely put a foot wrong for this club since he arrived. Koundé, coming in as a right center back / right back, was all he needed to be, combining well with Dembele. Clearly, those two have some chemistry, which is really nice to see throughout this game. Maybe it's the French connection, of course, playing together at the World Cup, but they do seem to have an understanding. And Koundé's ability to get forward, we know he could do it. We saw it for Sevilla, and seeing just little glimmers of it for Barcelona get me excited for what he's going to be able to do even more so when he's not having to worry about Piqué behind him and he's looking over his shoulder and going, oh, Araujo's got my back. I can get forward a little bit more now. And I was really happy too, as much as Marcos Alonso being on the field late is terrorizing for Culers, he had a nice header away under pressure late in that game as he was nearing stoppage time. As I said, Barcelona kept doing enough. Between Roberto, Alonso, Araujo, when Morata tries to go down in the box, none of them fouled him, so they don't get the PK late when Atletico Madrid were looking for it. Good on all of them. That being Roberto and Alonso, who are always under a lot of pressure. And then Savic and Ferran Torres both getting reds late in this match, telling you that this was really a good old-fashioned wrestling match there in the second half, like Atletico Madrid wanted. And Barcelona mirrored them tactically and mirrored them in the intensity of this game. And those are the intangibles that we always say are missing, that killer instinct, that desire and need to get those 3 points from Barcelona. You saw it in Ferran Torres. He was not going to be pushed around by Savic. Yes, he misses the next match. That's a bummer. But for Ferran Torres to just kind of stand up for himself, Savic gets sent off. Having only 10 men was supporting Barcelona because they were able to keep Ronald Araujo and Christensen. Losing their forward, again, for one of Atletico Madrid's bigger set-piece pieces, winds up being a good thing for Barcelona. And I'm sorry for making you wait so long, but I'm pretty much ending this all about Ronald Araujo. Incredible day from Ronald Araujo, and I'm just so happy to see him back. That save in the 94th minute, and there were other plays as I already mentioned, but in the 94th minute, that save off the goal line, what a save that was. And while you say, I don't know how much he knew of it, his eyes were directly on the ball. He knew exactly what he was doing in that moment. And that is tremendous from Araujo, which makes me give you a little hyperbole with the bigger picture stuff. It reminds me that, one, if he was healthy, there is, not saying no doubt, there's a 98% chance in my mind that Barcelona are playing the knockouts of the Champions League. No way do they concede half the goals they conceded when he was not on the field in the Champions League campaign. Second thing that save made me feel and realize is that Barcelona could have, with just one heel of Ronald Araujo, gotten the 2 points that might be necessary to win them the title this season. Liga might come down that close. It is a two-horse race, especially with Atletico Madrid being buried by 3 points in this one too. It is a two-horse race between the two biggest teams in Spain. And getting this against the third biggest team in Spain could pay huge dividends at the end of the year. And number three, and this is the most important one, is I miss Ronald Araujo. He is so freaking good at defending. You look at me, right? You know that even when I played the sport, what he does and what I do were probably different things. And he does so many things. It's almost a different sport to me when I watch him physically, speed-wise, his awareness on corners, defending, all those little different things. And to the very end, Ter Stegen setting up his wall, getting the deflection, and Araujo on the header, getting it clear as the whistle basically blew. That is why people said he might be a future captain for Barcelona, that being Ronald Araujo. And that's the kind of effort, intensity, and winning plays that not only are going to make him an important player for Barcelona, he already is, but remind you, he is their best defender. He may not be able to build up, and all those different things he can't do with his feet are completely forgivable because he wins you games like this. Didn't put the team completely on his back. Dembele, Pedri, Gavi, Busquets. I said there was a lot of players who played well, but Ronald Araujo was a star for me, and he would have been my man of the match. So there it is, the 5 headlines from Barcelona's 1-0 win over Atletico Madrid. We're going to have the podcast tomorrow. We're going to continue to break down some of these tactics, get into the little nuances of this game. What a tremendous victory it was. I know it didn't feel like that. It was wet, it was muddy, all those different things, but this was a fantastic result for Barcelona and their hopes of winning the Liga and that trophy that Xavi desperately needs. So I hope you enjoyed this. Subscribe to the channel, do all that stuff, and we'll see you next time. Until next time, Forza Barca.